There is a budget line called the Unanticipated Needs Fund. It appears in no law you have read, and it has sat inside the White House appropriations every single year since the Eisenhower administration, drawing real money with no public accounting of where it goes. That is the first fact. Let it settle. Every year, Congress passes a budget. Every year, that budget includes a block of money, real dollars, allocated to the executive office of the president. That carries no list of recipients, no itemized expenditures, and no requirement that anyone outside the White House ever learn how it was spent. The fund appears in the Annual Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Act. The authorizing language is 9 lines long. It directs funds toward, and this is the actual wording used, unanticipated needs arising in the maintenance of the White House. No further definition, no ceiling on interpretation, no audit mechanism visible to the public. That is not a conspiracy. That is the appropriations process. The fund did not emerge from one dramatic vote. It accumulated. In the early Cold War years, the logic was national security. You cannot publish the president's daily operational expenses if they reveal his movements, his meetings, his contingency plans. Congress accepted that argument and wrote the exception into recurring law. But recurring law, once written, does not expire by itself. The security rationale was never time-limited. The budgetary exception was never revisited. It compounded. By the time anyone thought to ask how large the discretionary envelope had grown, the answer was protected under the same authority that justified creating it. The mechanism locked itself before anyone noticed it was locking. The Unanticipated Needs Fund sits inside the larger appropriation for the executive office of the president, which runs above $700 million annually across its components. The Office of Management and Budget controls the reporting requirements for that appropriation, or more precisely, controls what those requirements do not require. The same executive branch that spends the money decides what the public record says about it. That is not an oversight. That is the structure. The OMB was not elected. It was created by executive reorganization in 1970 under authority Congress had pre-delegated. No one voted for OMB's power over this specific line. They voted for the reorganization authority. The rest was assembled quietly from the inside. Remember, no one voted for this. Here is where it reaches ordinary people. When a White House administration wants to fund an initiative that would generate political cost if it appeared under a named budget line, the unanticipated needs structure provides cover. Not because the money is hidden from Congress entirely, Congress sees a number, but because the detail is never required. A researcher filing a Freedom of Information Act request for expenditure records under this fund receives the same answer every administration gives. Information withheld under Exemption B. 5. Deliberative process privilege. The money was spent. The decision to spend it was an internal executive deliberation. The deliberation is protected. The record closes. This has happened with funds tied to White House outreach operations across party lines. It has happened with travel not itemized in official schedules. It has happened by every available inference from redacted OMB budget exhibits during every administration from Eisenhower forward. The fund has never once been zeroed out. Not during budget freezes, not during government shutdowns, not under any party, not once. And here is the part that should actually worry you: it is completely legal. Why can it not be repealed? Because the authority to define what is unanticipated lies inside the executive branch, and repealing the appropriations language would require Congress to withhold the line, which the president can effectively block by threatening to veto the larger spending bill it rides in on. The political cost of appearing to strip White House operational flexibility, which is how every administration frames the objection, has never been paid. No floor vote on removal has ever been held. A mechanism that is legal, precedented, bipartisan in use, and politically expensive to attack is not one that anyone holding power has an incentive to remove. The lock is not a law. The lock is the incentive structure surrounding it. What this tells you about every other institution is the pattern underneath the pattern. The Unanticipated Needs Fund is not an anomaly. It is a template. Once a branch of government establishes a spend without detail precedent under an operational necessity rationale, that precedent does not retract. It expands at the edges. The intelligence community's classified budget, the National Intelligence Program, operates on the same logic codified at Title 50 of the United States Code. The Defense Department's special access programs run by the same rules. The pattern is not corruption. It is architecture. It was designed this way by people who understood that a mechanism wrapped in necessity is a mechanism that survives indefinitely. The question no one in this conversation can answer is the one that matters. If every administration uses this fund, and every administration defines unanticipated differently, and no external body has ever reviewed a complete expenditure record, then what has actually been purchased across 7 decades? Not in any specific year. In aggregate. 70 years of unanticipated needs, all of them legal, all of them confidential, all of them authorized by someone you elected, for reasons you were never meant to know. What does a government that has spent that much in secret, for that long, actually owe you in the way of an explanation? No one has ever asked for one in writing. No one has ever been required to give one.